There's one book right now that everybody's talking about, and that book is Yesteryear by Caro Claire Burke. It's a book that people either love or hate, with a protagonist that people love to hate. But is it really worth all the hype? Meh. Don't get me wrong, it's got a great hook. Trad wife influencer gets sent back in time and has to live like a real pioneer. Sounds awesome. I went into this expecting social commentary, historical culture shock, and maybe a little bit of psychological horror. A hateable protagonist doing morally questionable things, and just a general good time. Instead, I spent nearly 400 pages waiting for it to become the book that I thought I was reading. So today I'm going to tell you everything that happens in Yesteryear so that you can save yourself some money on a mediocre book and spend it on coffee and cake instead. Howdy book lovers, I'm Anita. Let's travel back to 1855. Whoa. But not right away. We start off with present-day Natalie in all of her influencer glory. Her life is perfect, and she's perfect at living it. Or so she constantly tells us. Her husband Caleb comes from an American dynasty. Her children are beautiful. Her farm's beautiful. She's got 2 lovely nannies and a producer, none of which appear on camera for their own protection, of course. Everything's just sunshine and roses. But almost immediately we see that Natalie's full of shit. She gets tons of hate comments on her content from angry women, which is what she calls feminists. And of course she's too above them to respond, so she has to create sock puppet accounts. And honestly, that's basically everything you need to know about Natalie. So her staff don't seem happy, particularly producer Shannon, who has screaming nightmares every night. Natalie brushes the nightmares off as the Lord trying to communicate with Shannon. And why might the Lord want to reach Shannon? Well, Shannon has misbehaved. I think we can all see where this is going already, right? Natalie doesn't particularly seem to like her children, especially her eldest daughter Clementine. Their only value for her is when they perform on camera, basically, and she definitely doesn't seem to like her husband Caleb. There's a scene right at the start where he interrupts her filming with the children when they're going to collect the eggs from the chicken coop, and the only thing that stops it from becoming a full-on fight is that she remembers the kids are there watching. She basically hates everything. She looks down on everyone, and, when filming's ruined for the day, she decides she'll take the kids to Target. Just the girls, because they perform better on camera than the boys. And that's 3 girls and 2 boys and another girl on the way because, birth control's from the devil. And they've all got these twee homesteady names like Stetson and Junebug. Just like literally everything in her life is on brand. Anyway, so she goes to Target with the girls and she's looking down on everyone she sees like, how can people come to these places every week? Being here feels like I'm nursing a cavity. And, that kind of sanctimonious BS. And then she runs into this woman that she went to high school with, Vanessa. And if she was acting smug before, it is nothing to how she feels when she sees Vanessa. There's like this 8-page rant about all the ways she's superior to Vanessa, and she's like so sure Vanessa's obsessed with her and that like Vanessa probably hates her because she lives by her principles. Vanessa also had a religious upbringing, but hers was a lot more strict than Natalie's even, and she's kind of rejected all that and taken on modern thinking, I suppose, and she's sort of rejecting all the church's teachings about gender and a woman's place and all that. And so obviously Natalie thinks she must be miserable. She's sure that Vanessa probably hates her because she lives by her principles and won't eat store-bought ham. Like, seriously, this woman probably hasn't even thought of you in 10 years, Natalie. Get over it. And this is sort of where you first get to see exactly how hypocritical Natalie is and how she's actually the angriest of all the angry women. Anyway, so she gets back in the car after they finished at Target and she's like, fuck, this Vanessa bitch is totally going to post everywhere that she saw me at Target. So she decides to beat Vanessa to the punch and post about it first. So she's, filming in the car, like, hey girls, what did you buy at Target today? I can't do an American accent, I shouldn't even try. And, she's asking the girls what they bought at Target and, she's filming a reel or whatever, and Clementine, the oldest girl, is like, I don't want to be filmed, stop filming me. So this first part of the novel is sort of broken up like a question and answer from an interview that Natalie's doing, but we don't know who's interviewing her or why. And at this point in the book, we kind of just feel like it's a narrative device to show some of Natalie's views about parenthood. parenthood, to show some of Natalie's views about parenthood and being an influencer, and specifically an influencer who uses their children in their content. But yeah, all this will come up again later. Later that night, she's getting ready for bed and she gets an email from producer Shannon with Shannon's resignation. And in the email, Shannon says, quote, "For what it's worth, I don't think you're a bad person. I think you're just confused." And so you're like, what's Natalie done to her? And so Natalie's stewing over this email when Caleb comes in and he's all like, I've decided to run for the Senate. And she's kind of pleased because that's what she's been planning for her and Caleb's dad. In my notes I've got Caleb's dad, Doe. His name's not Doe, his name's Doug, but Doe's a funny name. Doe. What was I saying? Her and Doug have been planning for Caleb to run for office. They've kind of been planning for that from the beginning. And, now it's time. But she's also too busy stewing over the email from Shannon to really take it in. And she's doubly pissed off because, you guessed it, Shannon's been banging Caleb. So Natalie's not in a great place emotionally. And things aren't going to get any better for her because she wakes up the next day and she's like, is it super cold? Is it super dark? And it is. And the reason for that is that it's 1855. So in the book, the 1855 parts are broken up between flashbacks of Natalie's backstory from her college years through to the events at the start of the book. And the flashbacks are most of the book, actually. But yeah, the 1855 parts are broken up between it. And that works in book format, but I think trying to explain what happens to you guys in that way would just end up weird and confusing. So I'll take you through all of the 1855 parts to a certain point and then go back to all of Natalie's past. Trust me, it'll make sense. Well, kind of. Okay, so Natalie, she wakes up and she's cold and she's like, hang on, this isn't my super luxurious but humble looking bedding. Hang on, where's my phone? Something strange is afoot. She's pretty sure she's been kidnapped. So she gets up. Well, she falls out of bed, actually, because the furniture isn't where she expects it to be. And then she gets up. And she can hear children laughing in the kitchen, and they kind of sound like her children. So she gets up and goes to the kitchen, and the layout of the house is the same as her house, but it is not her house. And the children in the kitchen, they look like her children, but they're not her children. And so she's all like, I think of plastic dolls. I think of aliens and skin suits. I think, oh God, of my own children, taking off their own faces and handing them to strangers to wear like rubber masks. Like, I don't know, wouldn't you just think these are some visiting cousins that you didn't know about or something? But no. Classic Natalie, so dramatic. So on the front door, all the kids' heights are carved in with the year beside it. And the most recent notch that's been carved is her height. And it says Mama 1855. And then she just freaks out. She just nopes the heck out of there. She runs outside and the farm looks different, but the same, the same sort of landscape. And Caleb's there, but he looks different too. He's not soft and spineless anymore, and she doesn't think it really is Caleb. So she starts running down the road in her nightie and, bare feet. And Caleb catches up to her and she's all like, get off me, unhand me, you foul beast. She doesn't actually say that because she's not that cool. But yeah, she's like, let me go. And she spits at him, and so he hits her and knocks her out. And yeah, so she's knocked out cold, and when she wakes up, she realises that she's not pregnant anymore. Did I mention that she was pregnant before? Yeah, I did. Yeah, she's not pregnant anymore, and she's like, what the heck is up with that? Like, how can I just suddenly be not pregnant? But honestly, she doesn't really overthink it that much. And in this timeline, right, so she's got 4 kids this time, 2 girls, 2 boys. The youngest is Maeve, who is super cute and sweet. She comes into the bedroom and Natalie tries to question her about where she is and what's going on and who's kidnapped her. But Maeve's got no answers. She's just like, you're home. Come to the kitchen and have a biscuit. And Natalie's like, yeah, actually, I could eat. So in the kitchen, the oldest kid, Mary's making soap. And she's, putting it in the moulds and sprinkling some herbs on it. And Natalie's like, who taught you how to do it that way? And Mary's like, you did. And Natalie isn't sure what to make of that. Honestly, one of the best things about this whole book is how fed up Mary gets with Natalie and how useless she is. She's just like, for fuck's sake, stop sitting around and complaining. Just go and actually do something for a change. Go bring in the wood or something. Like, this kid's about 13 and she's running the whole house, like, in 1855. And she's looking after the kids, making all the food, turning the freaking butter by hand. And Natalie's just all like, ooh, washing the clothes makes my hands hurt. The water's really cold. I don't like it here. I want to go home. And yeah, Mary's just not having any of it. So Natalie decides that old Caleb, which is what she calls this timeline's Caleb. Yeah, so she thinks that, you know, old Caleb's this psycho stalker who, because he looks a bit like her actual husband, that he has some sort of claim to her. And she's like, screw that, and she tries to run away again. This time her foot gets caught in a trap. And yeah, she's all like, I'm caught in a trap. So Caleb has to carry her back to the house and Mary has to stitch her foot up. It's not a very bad cut, but the way Natalie bangs on, you would think she lost her whole leg. Like, at one point she literally says, I have a foot that is literally hanging by a thread. It is like, you know, a cut on a foot. Mary gets even more annoyed by her over the next few days. She's all like, you have to get up and help out. I can't keep neglecting all of my other work just to look after you. She's like, if you can't grow up, you can go to bed without dinner. Mary is the best. And so Natalie just sort of sits around sulking. She's a bit worried the food's poisoned, but Mary's biscuits are so delicious that she just stuffs her face with them anyway. Biscuits are like scones, right? Scones are delicious, so I can't really blame Natalie for that. I'd probably do the same thing, especially with hand-churned butter. I don't know why I'm making that kind of motion. It doesn't look very buttery, does it? Anyway, at this point in the book, you're thinking, so is it really time travel? Is Natalie just having a psychotic break? Is she actually kidnapped? What's going on? And this hook is the thing that keeps you reading. Because honestly, there's not a lot else going on, except for Natalie complaining. Yeah, so Mary is just absolutely done with Natalie at this point. At one point she says, if you don't get up and help out, I will come in there and saw off your foot. And I kind of wish she had it. It would have been funny. But anyway. And so because, you know, she hasn't got anybody on her side, she decides to befriend Maeve because, you know, Maeve just loves her and adores her and, you know, nobody else really does because she's annoying. And so, yeah, she starts to get up and she goes with Maeve to feed the chickens, but she's not very steady on her feet and she falls over. And while she's on the ground, she finds a piece of a lapel mic. Exhibit E. So this gives her a new theory. She thinks she's on a reality show. She actually loves reality shows. I don't know when she watches them, when she has time, but she loves them. She thinks maybe she's on a prank show or something. She thinks maybe... yeah, she's on a prank show. With the state of the world today, she thinks, yeah, they probably, you know, let men hit women on TV. They probably let women get their feet caught in traps. There's probably, you know, this whole first aid team just over the hill on standby just in case anything really bad happens. And that thought seems to cheer her up. The thought of having an audience, the thought of performing for someone, it gives her a purpose and she starts getting a bit more involved in life on the farm and starts pulling her weight a bit more. So she bakes some sourdough bread the same way she did for her Instagram, but it actually tastes disgusting. Mary says it doesn't matter, it's still food, but Natalie's a bit bummed out that, you know, her bread is not good. She's not actually very good at anything. She makes one last sort of half-hearted attempt at escaping, but the youngest son, Noah, sees her and she tells him she's just gone for a walk and he's like, oh, I'll join you. And so they start walking down the road and near the end of the road, Noah freaks out and runs back because, you know, past the end of the road, that's where all the evil lives. So Caleb takes her back to the house again. Mary gives her a tonic for the pain in her foot and after the tonic, she's way more agreeable. She even has a shower. She thinks she sees a chemtrail up in the sky, but she's pretty stoned from the tonic, so she doesn't, you know, pay much mind. She starts getting into a routine, but she hates the routine. She hates the hard work and the boredom and, you know, mainly I think she hates the lack of external validation. But it keeps her going, the thought that this might be a reality show. So after a while of her not running away, Caleb tells her that he's given her enough space and they'll start sharing a bed again. She realises that no, she's not actually on TV, because even in a country that hates women, they wouldn't let somebody rape her on TV. So I've got no idea what Caro Claire Burke was intending to do with this part of the book, but Caleb rapes her and she likes it. She's like, yeah, this is what it's like to be with a real man. She doesn't want to get pregnant in 1855, but apart from that, she's just like, oh yeah, cool. Yeah, cool. So it's getting into winter and Maeve is worried that the chickens are going to get cold because she's sweet and precious and, you know, innocent. And so Natalie and Maeve decide one day that they'll make hats for the chickens. And while they're doing that, Mary goes off to the forest to gather saffron and mushrooms or something. And when Mary gets back, she's acting super cagey and weird. Like, not just because she's annoyed that there's all this work and they've just sat around making chicken hats all day. She's like different weird. Natalie can tell she's lying about something, but Mary won't tell her what it is. But over the next few days, Mary is just pissy with everyone. Normally she's just pissy with Natalie, but yeah, after this, she's just not happy. I mean, she's 13 and she has to take care of this whole freaking family while her mother sits around making chicken hats. So I think it's pretty justified that she's not happy. But Caleb makes Natalie go and talk to her. Which, like, has Caleb met Natalie? How is that going to help? Anyway, so Natalie goes outside to talk to Mary and Mary asks Natalie why people lie. And Natalie starts having this weird God moment. She's just convinced that the Lord is with them in this moment. And she starts jibber-jabbing to Mary and she mentions Clementine. And Mary's like, what the fuck? Who is Clementine? And Natalie's just like, oh, forget I mentioned anything. But Mary's like, oh my God, I hate you so much. Mary must actually be a bit older than 13 because when the eldest boy Abel turns 13, Caleb takes him off into the woods for man business. Not actually as gay as I just made that sound. I hope. So yeah, and because Mary's the oldest, she must be older than 13. But anyway, and Noah, the youngest boy, he's about 8 and he's really upset about being left behind. And he gets, you know, angry at being left there with all the girls and starts yelling at Natalie about how she's useless and how she's bad at being a mother, which, like, I mean, he's not wrong, is he? When the men return, Abel's all like, hell yeah, being a man's awesome, you guys. But you don't actually find out till later what the secret man business was. So Natalie realises she's been there for more than 2 months and she hasn't had a period yet. So she's convinced that Caleb's knocked her up and she freaks out and thinks that God's abandoned her. It's weird, but she sort of has, not just in the 1855 timeline, like all through her life, she has these brief periods of intense faith where she genuinely seems to believe, but they never really affect how she treats people. It's kind of like because she has no sense of real spirituality, she confuses other things for faith. Like there's this weird bit when she's talking about when she's a teenager and her sexual feelings for Jesus. I mean, she doesn't realise they're sexual feelings, but the way she describes them, they're, you know, how a teenage girl experiences sexual feelings for the first time kind of thing, and sexual desire, I suppose. But, you know, for Jesus. So the whole time Natalie's been in 1855, she hasn't seen anyone from outside the farm at all. So she's really shocked one day when these 2 men show up with Caleb to help out with some farm work. They're apparently the neighbours. Mary thinks the neighbours are hotties and she wants to invite them for dinner. Natalie doesn't like the idea because, you know, she's sort of seeing Mary look out the window wistfully at these 2 boys and, well, men, really, I guess. And she realises that Mary's, you know, old enough to be married probably in that time, and that if she does get married, she will move away and Natalie will be stuck there without someone to do all the hard work for it, without someone to look after the children and to cook and to clean. Mary ignores Natalie and invites the 2 neighbours for dinner. And of course, Natalie has to make it all about her. She starts questioning the neighbours like, so where do you actually live? What's on the other side of the hill? Did you know I'm being held hostage there? Are you in on it too? Or, you know, are you going to help me? And the neighbours are just like, pass the potatoes. So a day or two later, a fox or a wolf or something gets into the chicken coop and kills the chickens. It's pretty sad because little Maeve, she just loved those chickens. And she's like carrying around this little chicken feather of her favourite chicken. And, it's pretty sad. Maeve, she's too good for this world. Anyway, Natalie decides to go on strike and takes to her bed, which nobody really notices because it's not like she does anything anyway. Then Mary comes in and she's like, you have to get up and help me, Maeve's sick. Natalie's like, no, she's not. She's just upset about the chickens. But Maeve is actually really sick. She's got a fever and she's so sick that for once Mary and Natalie are on the same side. Mary says she knows where they can find a doctor, and so together they plan for Natalie to escape and go and get help. Mary loads Natalie up with some food and she tells her how to get through the forest. Natalie's like, what about the traps? And Mary's like, oh, there was only ever that one trap and you stepped right in it. Natalie's about as amused by that as you'd expect. Anyway, so as she's about to leave the farm, Natalie has like the only piece of character development that she gets throughout the whole book. She's like looking at Mary and she thinks, I hope these kids aren't hallucinations because I've actually grown to love them. And now is a great time for us to jump back to the modern day and fill in all of that backstory of Natalie's that I skipped before. So from the get-go, we can tell that Natalie's a bit of a control freak. She took over teaching her own Sunday school class when she was a kid because the teacher wasn't good enough. She says she's determined, but we know that she means bossy and probably a bit of a bully. Probably the only person in the whole book that Natalie has any respect for is her mother. Her father left them when Natalie was young, and her mother worked 2 jobs to raise Natalie and her sister Abigail. They told people that their father was no longer with us. Because Natalie was so determined, she won a full scholarship to Harvard. And there's this great scene as Natalie's about to leave for Harvard that sort of perfectly sets up Natalie's relationship with her mother and with her sister for the rest of the novel. Natalie's waiting for the plane. Don't do cocaine, my sister Abigail said fearfully. She was 2 years older than me with a heart-shaped face, wide Bambi eyes and a crumb of a diamond ring on her finger. She was engaged to her high school sweetheart, a pimple-faced corn dog of a young man with a bad temper, Bryce. Together they were enrolled at the local community college. Abigail had no intentions of ever leaving our hometown or of reading a book that was written by someone whose name wasn't Paul or David or John. Remember, Natty, my mother said, just remember to be kind. Her expression was bright with piousness, almost oily with it. Everyone believes in something, she said. You can reach anyone if you show them kindness. I know, Mother. Her attention snapped back to me. I'm serious, Natty. Be nice. But, she just can't. She just has no concept of how to be nice or even why she would be. But kind of not in a fun way. She's just kind of whiny and boring. It's not going to be a problem, I said. I meant it, though not in the way I knew she would take it. This was secretly why I was going to Boston. I was going to a school in a city where intellect would matter much more than being likeable. But Natalie, she comes to realise that there's nowhere in the world where being smart is more important than being likeable. So she goes to board the plane and she is about to turn back and wave goodbye to her mother and her sister, but she doesn't because she doesn't want to get turned into a pillar of salt like Lot's wife. But then she wonders what happened to the women in the Bible who looked forward. She doesn't know, but there was something about the notion that felt instinctively wrong to me. It sniffed of greed and felt worryingly close to witchcraft. Best not to take the risk. So yeah, she's off to Harvard, but she doesn't really have any plans for a future. Well, any plans other than being better than anyone she ever meets. And when she gets there, it's not how she expected at all. She thought there'd be, intellectual debates in the hallways and all that. But instead she's in this dorm full of party girls that she can't relate to, especially not to her roommate Rena. All these girls kind of vaguely know each other or have similar life experiences, and they all think that Natalie's a bit simple because she's this weirdo religious girl who doesn't drink and wears prairie dresses and braided hair. And, you know, she's sort of always muttering under her breath about them. So one night Rena brings this boy back to their room and Natalie listens to them have sex. Rena's obviously very drunk and she tells the boy that she doesn't like what they're doing and that she feels sick. And he's like, do you want to stop? And she's like, no, it's okay. But it's all very awkward and unsatisfying and full of really gross noises. So later on, like a couple of days later, Rena and some of the girls are drinking in their room again, and Rena tells the other girls that the boy was predatory and how he had pressured her into sex. And Natalie is not down with that. I mean, it's not that she's not down with Rena being pressured into sex. She's not down with Rena saying that the boy was rapey. She tries to get a room assignment changed, but they won't let her. They're like, you're not in any physical danger. And she's like, but I'm in spiritual danger. And they're just like, whatever. So one night when the girls are drinking in their room again, Natalie picks a fight with Rena and she tells everyone that Rena lied about the boy being rapey and that really Rena's the predator. So Rena attacks her and then, you know, Natalie gets to move out into a room by herself. Classic Natalie. So Natalie's actually pretty lonely at college and she really misses her mother. But then she starts going to this church group where she meets Caleb. On their first date, Natalie tells him that she wants to live on a farm with chickens and to have a bunch of kids. All the things that a good Christian girl wants. And Caleb really likes this idea, especially the farm. He thinks she knows about farming stuff, but, you know, obviously she doesn't. She's never lived on a farm. Caleb's rich, like proper rich. They get engaged super fast, like after 4 dates or something. And her mother is like, dude, you know, if you marry this guy, you'll always be just his wife, just standing behind him. And Natalie's like, yeah, I'm actually cool with that because people in the outside world suck and I don't want any part of it. People in the outside world don't believe in traditional gender roles or any of the things that Natalie's been taught all her life in her never actually disclosed fundamentalist Christian religion. And she has never really had any dreams to give up, so there's that. Because, you know, having dreams is witchcraft and feminism. So she marries Caleb, obviously. And at the wedding, Natalie's sister Abigail tells her that she's pregnant. And Natalie thinks about how awful Abigail's life is going to be with her drunken no-hoper husband. Natalie isn't super enthused about the wedding night, and she is even less so when Caleb can't get a proper boner. But, you know, proper boner or not, they managed to get Natalie knocked up. And so she goes back to school the next semester and she's all glowing and pregnant. She runs into Rena and she's sort of like rubbing it in Rena's face. We're not sure that Rena actually cares, but Natalie does believe that Rena cares. So, you know, she's all like, my future's going to be golden while Rena toils away, living in the rat race and competing against men. And she rants about this for like literal pages and pages. And it's like she feels as if she's, you know, got some cheat code to life that other women who don't want to be trad wives don't have. But then she has to give birth and she does not like that at all. She hates it and she hates the baby. She thinks Clementine's evil. She's obviously got some pretty severe postpartum depression, but her mother's just like, yeah, that's how it is. You know, just jog it off. Just go for a jog. Like, literally go for a jog around the hospital. The nurse is like, no, absolutely do not do that. But Natalie sneaks off and goes jogging around the hospital. She rips out all of her stitches and she collapses. And just like, what did she think that would accomplish? Seriously. Anyway, Natalie's not coping. After they leave the hospital, Natalie and Caleb and Clementine move in with Natalie's mother. And her mother takes care of Clementine while Natalie basically just sleeps and breastfeeds and hates everything. Abigail tries to talk to Natalie about how hard it is to be a new mother and how what she's going through is normal. And Natalie's basically just like, don't speak to me as if we're equals, peasant. While Natalie's, going through all this depression and stuff, Caleb's just loafing around Natalie's mother's house, doing nothing useful, just getting in the way. At one point, he tries to cheer Natalie up by buying her some running shoes and like a baby Bjorn thing so that Natalie can go jogging with the newborn baby. And that is the point where Natalie realises she's actually married to a moron, and she realises that she barely knows him and that she kind of hates him, and that there's not really anything she can do about that because she doesn't believe in divorce. She starts going for walks and she notices that all of the other husbands in the neighbourhood, they all leave for work at the same time. They all come home at the same time. And how she would really, really like it if Caleb did that. I think she's sort of more interested in him leaving than him coming back, though. When all the other guys are going off to work, Caleb stands out on the front lawn with his yoga mat doing yoga, and both Natalie and her mother are just so embarrassed by him doing yoga. It's just the most hilarious image, like this little like cookie cutter neighbourhood and all the Stepford wives waving their husbands off. And the husband's driving out and Caleb just there with his, yoga mat doing a downward dog on their lawn. Oh, classic Caleb. Anyway, so Natalie decides that she'll pretend that she likes Clementine and that she will make Caleb get a job so that he stops doing yoga on the front lawn. And this is really the start of something for Natalie, the pretending. At one point, she asks her mother how she always kept it together when they were kids and she was a single mother. And her mother says she just always pretended that somebody was watching her. And this really, really resonates with Natalie. So she starts pretending and she just basically never stops. So Caleb doesn't see why he should go out and get a job when he's super rich and he can just loaf around and play with the baby. But he is driving Natalie crazy, so she calls his parents and tells on him. So his parents organise for them to go out to California and stay with them in their big rich people house. So Caleb's pretty angry that she's gone behind his back and talked to his parents, and she's kind of happy that he's mad. She thinks that at least it's sort of manly for him. So they stay with his parents for like a year, and she realises that everyone else in the family thinks Caleb's a moron too. The brothers just avoid him. He's got like 4 brothers. He's the youngest. And yeah, the brothers all go off on holidays together and stuff like that and don't invite Caleb. And there's a mention at one point about Caleb taking baths with the mother, but yeah, it's just kind of mentioned in passing and never really touched on, but I'm pretty sure that's another reason why the brothers don't want to hang out with him. Caleb's dad says to Natalie, like, he's going to go into politics one day because he'd be really good at it, because it's the kind of job where it's a good thing to not think too hard, not to think too much. But in the meantime, Natalie and Caleb's dad decide that Caleb really does need to get a proper job. Doug, he's like got something lined up for Caleb, but Natalie decides no, they should buy the ranch. And so she borrows the money off Doug. She borrows $5 million off Doug, and that's for the property, to renovate the house, to get everything up and going. And there's this weird moment when she's asking him for the money where she thinks that he's going to ask to fuck her, and then she's disappointed when he doesn't because he's a real proper manly man and she'd probably like it. But instead of asking for sex, he tells her that she needs to have more kids, which, it's the one thing she really, really doesn't want to do, but it's $5 million, so she agrees to it. In the meantime, while Natalie and Caleb's dad have been off plotting, Caleb's decided he'd really like to be a kindergarten teacher. I do think that Caleb would have been great at being a kindergarten teacher, and I think that he would have been really happy doing it. But Natalie is just so grossed out at the idea of them being a kindergarten teacher family. So Natalie's all like, that they teach kids all sorts of weird stuff in schools these days. They make kids get vaccinated and they make them feel guilty about being white. And her saying this leads Caleb down this internet rabbit hole of crackpot theories that he sort of wholeheartedly embraces and internalizes so that it becomes a core part of his personality. And that is a big reason why he decides that, yes, actually the ranch is a good idea. Then I can homeschool our kids and keep them away from dangerous things like education. So they buy the ranch. And from the start, it's a bit of a money sink. It's full of black mold that needs to be removed. And you're kind of thinking at this point, black mold, maybe that's, why the time travel. But no, it never ever gets mentioned again, except that it's expensive to remove black mold. And so, yeah, it's expensive to remove the mold. Caleb buys a bunch of animals that they're not prepared for, and the animals die because he's got no clue what he's doing. And not just once, he keeps buying animals to replace the animals that die. And who the heck is selling him these animals? Just stop selling him the animals, please. They hire some farm labourers at first to help him get rid of the dead animals and then to just work on the farm. So at least someone on the farm can do some real work, but they're still making zero money. Things aren't going well. And Doug's decided to run for president. So they've basically maxed out their credit with him because he needs all of his money, for the presidential campaign. Though he is fine with using the fact that he has a cowboy son with a trad wife to reinforce his right-wing political agenda. He says something to Natalie about how in politics you don't change your policies, you just change their packaging, and Natalie really takes that on board. Meanwhile, Natalie's not holding up her end of the bargain. She hasn't been able to get pregnant again, mainly because Caleb is a literal softcock. So she ends up making him jizz into a bowl and uses a turkey baster to get herself pregnant again. And Natalie, she's just constantly angry. Her mother and her sister's like 500 kids, they come to visit on the farm. And while they're there visiting, Abigail tells them that she's getting a divorce from her no-good husband. Which, understandably, she's been, constantly pregnant since she got married. Divorce is totally against their beliefs, and Natalie is not okay with it. Not because she's worried about her sister's soul or anything like that. Mainly because Natalie herself had to sign a prenup and the farm is all in Caleb's name, so she can't leave Caleb without losing everything, and she's basically trapped. And why should her sister get out of her shitty situation when Natalie can't? Unsurprisingly, Natalie is a total bitch about it. Later on, Natalie's talking alone with her mother, and her mother mentions that she was talking to that woman, Vanessa, from Target at the start. And Vanessa was worried because she saw Caleb at the farmer's market selling their vegetables, and you're not actually allowed to sell stuff there unless your stuff's organic. Natalie's like, our stuff is organic. And her mother's like, well, what's that there behind you? What's all that pesticide there? And Natalie, that does not improve her mood at all. And she goes on this racist rant about migrant workers. Classic Natalie. So when the mother and the sister and the 5,000 kids leave, Clementine's like, I want to go and live with Auntie Abigail and have fun with my cousins. And Natalie's just like, I fucking hate you so much. She doesn't say that out loud, but, well. So because the money's running out, Natalie decides to take a course on how to make money from social media. She thinks it's going to be practical advice, but it's just all this, wafty BS, you need to find your authentic self and stuff like that, which, doesn't actually mean anything. Anyway, so the only real value she gets out of this course is that they tell her that people don't find her likeable and that her smiles look fake. They look like grimaces. And so she practices smiling in the mirror until it looks real. And her Insta account, it starts growing slowly. She's got 3,000 followers or something. But then one day, one of Caleb's crackpot internet buddies from the manosphere, which is actually a real thing. I thought it was just in this book, and then I looked it up and it's a real thing and it's disgusting. You just do not go to the manosphere. You do not want to be there. Anyway, his buddy from the manosphere, who I think is meant to be like that guy Joe Rogan, he starts talking about Natalie on his live stream and how she's what America needs, good wholesome traditional gender roles, wives supporting men, so that men can be men, and yeah, all that kind of BS that you would expect from that kind of misogynist online community. And her account just goes viral. Like, she's just sitting there refreshing, getting like 10,000, 20,000 new subscribers. Within like a week, she's got hundreds of thousands. So she decides that she needs to start doing video content as well, which she doesn't really enjoy. I mean, she doesn't enjoy anything ever, but she does like having a purpose, and she likes using her brain again. And, you know, she really likes all the attention. She's still performing, but now she actually has an audience to perform to. Doug wants her to use her account to boost his political campaign, and she's so happy to deny him. She's like, oh, I just don't want to get political, as if her like entire existence isn't political. Classic Natalie. Her sister starts seeing a pasta at the church, not a pasta that you eat. It's a new church that Abigail and her mother have been going to since Abigail's divorce. And the church is a church that's a bit more progressive. They even think that gay people should be allowed. So, you know, Natalie obviously doesn't approve. And, you know, Natalie, has she even been to church once in this entire book? I do not think so. No, she goes to the church group at Harvard, but yeah, not really a churchgoer. She can go to Target, but she can't go to church. Anyway, then Natalie realises that Abigail has unfollowed her on Instagram, and so she calls Abigail up and she is like, what the hell, bitch, you unfollowed your own sister? And Abigail's like, yeah, because you're like a pod person on there and it creeps me the heck out. Natalie sort of tries to pull her into a fight, but Abigail's like, I've been going to therapy and my therapist said that it's okay to unfollow you. And also maybe you should get some therapy, Natalie. Her sister didn't say that. I did. Maybe her sister said that. I can't remember. But she should anyway. Anyway, so at this point, Natalie's got like 3, maybe 4 kids. And she's getting up at like 4 a.m. to get all of her content made. And she's, you know, there and she's making this video and she's like, oh, heck, I forgot to buy twine. And she like super needs twine for this video. It's a twine emergency. I was going to make a twine pun, but I got nothing, sorry. And anyway, so she wakes up Caleb and she's like, I need to go and buy twine. I'll take the baby. You get the other kids up and dressed and fed and stuff. What do you even need twine for? How do you have a twine emergency? But yeah, I guess if it is a twine emergency, what else can you do? You have to go and get your twine. So she takes the baby and she goes to buy twine. And while she's at the shop, she runs into this fan who's like, oh, I love your account. I can't believe how pretty you are in real life. And Natalie's like, oh, you're really pretty too. And the fan's like, oh no, I look a fright. I just ran out the door like this. And Natalie's like, well, I'm sure you'll do better next time. Just like classic Natalie. Classic Natalie. She just can't be nice. And then she says something else vaguely condescending to the girl, like about, oh, the girl's like, oh, do you live around here? And she's like, well, I don't live in town. And yeah, and then she gets out of there as fast as she can and she's loading her stuff into the car and the woman follows her out and she's like, look, I just wanted to say thank you because, you know, I've been having a really hard time after the birth of my baby. And, you know, she's just thanking Natalie for, you know, sort of being there. And the baby in the car starts crying and the woman's like, did you leave your baby in the car while you went shopping? And Natalie's like, fuck. And yeah, she's just got no answer. Well, she says some stuff like, oh, you know, because I am a fast shopper and, you know, I raise my kids the old-fashioned way, which, to be fair, I did get left in the car a lot as a child. And I don't think it hurt me. Did it hurt me? Maybe. Maybe it did. Anyway, you shouldn't leave your child in a car. More and more, she's noticing the divide between online Natalie and offline Natalie. It's as if she's sort of apart from both of them and observing two different people. And when she's offline, Natalie, she just can't perform. She sort of can't access that online persona. And so she just tries more and more to hide that part of herself from other people, or not from her family or the people around her, but like, you know, people she cares about. Later on, she's filming the thing that she needed the twine for, and Caleb comes in and he says, Clementine said that she hasn't had dinner. And Natalie's like, I fucking hate you, Clementine. But, you know, it is actually like 9 p.m. or something, and she hasn't taken care of any of the kids all day. She hasn't fed them. She hasn't, you know. And she's like, dude, I need a nanny. It's kind of like she hates Caleb for having no ambition, but she doesn't actually want to work or do anything either. She just wants to get the kudos for it. So anyway, they hire a nanny, and then they hire another nanny, and then they hire producer Shannon. And they can afford it because they're like making heaps of money from their merchandise and their social media and, you know, not the farm itself, because Caleb is still a shit farmer. And Natalie, she's been sort of like siphoning some money off for herself and, you know, putting in a different account, which I think is fair. Like, Caleb's got no freaking idea about the value of money. He just keeps, you know, buying whatever pops into his head, more animals, you know, to replace the ones that he's killed by his bad farmering. And, you know, she's putting in all this work and she's got no actual claim to the farm or anything that she's been doing. So I don't really blame her for skimming some money off top. But anyway, Caleb catches her out and he's like, what's this money and where's it going? And, you know, and she's all like, oh, pregnancy brain. And yeah, plays dumb. Like she doesn't know what the money is or what the account is or anything. Which, like, has Caleb met her? She's not ditzy. And, you know, straight after that conversation, she's on the phone to the Instagram people like, yeah, let's just siphon that off before it gets to the account so that he doesn't know or something. I don't know. I didn't even know you could make money directly from Instagram. Anyway, so they hire Shannon and it's pretty obvious from the get-go that Shannon's playing her. Like, Shannon's this Brooklyn hipster with pink hair and piercings, and she tells Natalie exactly what Natalie wants to hear. She's all like, oh, the girls in my class think you're a feminist icon. They just want the freedom that you have. And yeah, she tells Natalie, no one I know wants to spend their one wild and magical life being a shill for some billionaire tech asshole just so they can get access to shitty healthcare and put away like $5 a month for their retirement. And Natalie just laps all this up. Like, not even for 1 second does she stop to consider that Shannon might have an ulterior motive. She's just like, hell yeah, I am just as awesome as this girl says I am. She's hired. And to be fair, maybe Shannon is genuine when she starts out. Like, she does seem honestly disappointed when she gets to the farm and realises that everything Natalie posts online is fake. That they don't work the farm themselves, they use pesticides, they have nannies, and that she has to share a tiny bedroom with those nannies. And then Caleb starts telling her about how because of all the rats in New York City, people don't get enough oxygen in their brains, and that makes everyone in New York City stupid. So it's really lucky that she moved out there. The first thing that Shannon does is take a photo of the workers on the farm, and Natalie is just like, fuck. And she kind of wants to fire Shannon straight away, but Shannon's just so good at her job. Like, every day, Natalie is like, I'll fire her today. Like, she thinks she's a Dread Pirate Roberts or something. I'll fire her today. But then her content is just so much better with Shannon doing it, and her accounts are growing so much. And so Natalie is just kind of like, maybe it'll be okay. I'm sure it'll be fine. Yeah. Clementine just thinks that Shannon is the bee's knees. Like, she's different to any woman that Clementine sort of ever met or had access to. She even smiles on camera when Shannon is directing them. It's like the complete opposite to how she is with Natalie. There's this scene where Shannon's filming Clementine and Natalie having a picnic, And Natalie's amazed that Shannon can make it look as if Clementine's smiling at her. They're chatting during the shoot and Shannon says something about how not all women have to become mothers, and it just blows Clementine's mind. Like, well, what else would they do? They're women. She just never imagined that there would be any other option. Clementine also doesn't know what a notion is, so, you know, the homeschooling's obviously going great. The longer that Shannon stays, the more Natalie relies on her. She even makes Shannon film her home birth, like she's in the middle of this home birth and she's sort of crying out for somebody, and, you know, the mother and Caleb go running and she's like, no, I want Shannon. I mean, the kids are there too, which is weird, right? I mean, that's weird, right? Anyway, so the tension between Natalie and Shannon is building up because, you know, Shannon kind of thinks Natalie's a phony, and Natalie is sort of resentful that Shannon's got so much control. And it all kind of comes to a head on the night that Doug finally announces his presidential campaign. There's this rally and it's all super MAGA coded and disgusting. Like, Doug's slogan is "Civil War is coming," and, you know, meaning civil war between their lot and the woke lefties. And Shannon's filming at the rally and Doug starts yelling at her and calling security, but Natalie steps in between them and she's like, no, it's cool, she's with me, and takes Shannon off away from Doug. And Shannon says to Natalie, aren't you scared? And Natalie thinks she means of Doug, and she's like, no, it's just Doug. But Shannon's like, no, not Doug, all these people and, you know, everything that's happening here. And, you know, there's people sort of walking around with Confederate flags draped around them and, you know, sort of, I mean, it's MAGA coded, they're not wearing red hats, but, you know, it's implied. And Natalie's like, whatever, none of this is real, none of this actually means anything. Shannon's like, it's a presidential election, of course it means something. But Natalie's just basically annoyed that Doug's lifting captions from her Instagram posts to use in his speech. She doesn't care about his politics. I mean, she agrees with his politics. She's sort of complicit in his politics even. And you can kind of see the moment that the scales fall from Shannon's eyes completely, and that she realises how irredeemably self-centred Natalie is. There's this scene where they're leaving the rally and Natalie's about to get into the minivan, but Shannon's like, no, I get car sick, and climbs into the front seat. And, I mean, it's a bit heavy-handed, obviously, that, you know, Shannon's taking the front seat and Natalie has to take a back seat. Yeah, so she's sitting in the back with the nannies and the kids, and Natalie, it's like she just realises exactly how much control Shannon has over not just her content, but her whole life. She's got access to all of Natalie's accounts. She's got all the footage of, you know, of the ranch and everything that goes on behind the scenes at the ranch. Shannon's basically just got her over a barrel. And Natalie, she kind of just goes along hoping that Shannon doesn't realise. But, dude, she realises. She's always realised. Like, Natalie is no match for this fast-talking, pink-haired city kid. Natalie thinks she's so smart, but it's only because she's literally, like, she literally never thinks about anyone but herself, so she has nobody to judge herself against. From that point on, she just gets more and more paranoid about Shannon. She's always seeing Shannon whispering with the nannies or hanging out with Clementine or talking to Caleb. And to be fair, she's got a reason to be paranoid, because then Caleb comes in and he's like, oh yeah, I slept with Shannon. Caleb's like, I love her and I'm going to move to New York with her because she told me that the rat thing isn't even true. And Natalie's like, of course the fucking rat thing isn't true. And he's like, well, if you knew that, why didn't you tell me? So Natalie goes to confront Shannon, which, you know, that's going to end well. And Shannon's in a room getting changed and she's got no idea that Caleb wants to run away with her. She's like, I just wanted to debunk some of his crackpot theories and, you know, one thing led to another and it got out of hand. But, you know, now that I think about it, I can see why he would be interested in me over you, because you just treat him like you're stupid all the time. But, you know, he's smart enough to sit back and let you create this whole life for him to live inside. And then Natalie calls her a home wrecker and she's like, dude, this isn't a home, this is a business. And Natalie's like, well, joke's on you getting fucked by a dude who can't even get a boner. And Shannon's like, oh my God, does he not get a boner with you? And, you know, Natalie takes that about as well as you'd expect. She flies at Shannon and she's straddling her on the bed and strangling her. She's so angry that she kind of greys out. And when she comes to, she's like, oh, heck, what am I doing? And she climbs off Shannon and Shannon's there on the bed, like, trying to breathe. And she's like, this farm is cursed. And Natalie's like, I kind of regret not killing you now. So Natalie calls Doug and she's like, hey, Doug, we've got a bit of a situation here. I did a thing and it was, you know, maybe not a good thing. But, you know, your son, he's like with the producer and then I tried to kill the producer. And so they decide that, yeah, maybe now's a good time for Caleb to run for Senate. Which, I mean, obviously, who wouldn't? I know when I have a problem in life, that's my first go-to. And Doug's like, we should hire a PR firm to sort it out because you really need, you know, to be likeable to deal with this situation. And Natalie's like, who the fuck are you to say I'm not likeable enough? You horrible man, imbecile, asshole. If it weren't for me, your son would be dead in the ditch somewhere. And she's said it out loud. And Doug's like, lol, Natalie, you've proven my point. Classic Natalie. And so this is about the point in events where the book actually begins, chapter 1, right at the very start, where Shannon hands in a resignation and Caleb's like, oh, I'm going to run for office. And so Natalie, she realises now that Shannon's been gathering evidence the whole time. Shannon gave Clementine a phone. Shannon told Clementine what a trad wife is, all these things. We don't actually know how much of it is just Natalie's paranoia, but it is a fact that Shannon has gone to the press about Natalie assaulting her. She's got this primetime tell-all interview coming up. So Doug flies in with his team of lawyers to salvage the situation, but they don't really find anything that's going to help out Natalie because Shannon's from this rich family and, you know, there's not much dirt they can find on her or anything. So, you know, they're mainly just focused on how they're going to salvage Doug's presidential campaign. And the lawyers are kind of like, well, you know, America loves somebody who's got to fuck up for a son. So, you know, this is not actually going to hurt Doug's campaign at all. Natalie, her paranoia becomes even worse. She starts seeing Doug and Caleb whispering together. She starts noticing Caleb's mother talking privately with Clementine, all these little things. And she phones up her mother and she's like, everyone's turning against me. And her mother's like, well, you know how I told you all those years ago that your dad left? Well, actually, I was the one who cheated on him and I kicked him out because, you know, I didn't want to have a husband. I just wanted to be on my own, which, like, nice timing, Natalie's mother. And anyway, Natalie's mother, she's like, anyway, it's all fine because she talked about it with Abigail's new boyfriend, the pastor, and he said it's all good, just forgive yourself. You did a great job bringing up your daughters, which, like, I'm pretty sure he's only saying that because he hasn't met Natalie, right? Like, he's just basically going on what he knows of Abigail. Natalie gets mad at her mother and her mother finally gets mad back. She's like, fuck's sake, Natalie, can't you just be kind? Natalie can't just be kind, and she's all on her own. So the interview with Shannon airs and it's bad. It's very bad. She's got all this behind the scenes footage and there's stuff that when you're reading through the book, you think that it's just Natalie's internal monologue, but nope. It's stuff that she said aloud and Shannon has recordings of it. It's stuff like her whole rant about Vanessa at Target in the beginning. And that kind of makes you wonder, is all the ranty stuff all through the book, all the italicized passages of thought, have they actually been said aloud? Like when Rena says back in college about Natalie muttering away to herself, was she actually saying all of her nasty thoughts out loud? And I don't think Natalie ever addresses it or becomes aware of it, but it's obvious that it was Clementine recording, right? Like Shannon wasn't there. And it's sort of never mentioned that the car was bugged or anything, so it must have been Clementine recording on the phone that Shannon gave her. But the real kicker comes when Shannon talks about the assault. she implies very heavily that Natalie didn't just strangle her, but that she sexually assaulted her as well. And I mean, we know Natalie's a liar and that she's violent and that she'd do anything to establish control over a situation, so it's not unbelievable at all. But we also know that Natalie's fan base might forgive her for attacking a woman who has slept with a husband, but they wouldn't forgive her for being a lesbian. And there's this bit after the interview airs where Doug's ranting about how his whole campaign's ruined. And he says, like, if only his stupid little son had raped their stupid little producer, if that had happened, it would have been over with and forgotten in 2 weeks. But a predatory woman, that is unthinkable. So, yeah, that is pretty gross. Yeah. Yuck. Doug. He's not a nice man. So everything's going to shit. And Natalie's got these pills that Caleb's mother gave her way back when she wasn't coping with being a new mother. So she pops a couple of those and, you know, she's starting to feel okay. And Caleb comes to talk to her. And she's too high to be online, Natalie. So she's got absolutely no filter at all. And he's like, are you a lesbian? And is that why you hate having sex with me? And she's like, no, I hate having sex with you because of your limp dick. And he's like, well, my dick's only limp because fucking you is like fucking a dead person. Anyway, so they get pretty nasty with each other and he slaps her and he tells her like, oh, my manosphere buddies were right. They think you need to be disciplined. They think you need to be taken down a peg or two. And he tells her that his father is seriously considering making her have an accident, not a peeing her pants kind of accident, like a car accident in the mountains where she dies kind of accident. And she tells Kayla, she sort of stops and thinks for a second and she tells Kayla, you know, you don't actually want to run for the Senate. What you want is to be left alone. And she decides she'll go and talk to the father. So she goes off to do that and she's not really sure she'll come back alive. So back in 1855, Natalie is running through the woods to find a doctor for poor sweet Maeve. And she finds his cabin. Outside the cabin is a truck. And the cabin is called Manosphere. So she bursts into the cabin and she sees this like frame photo of her family. Not her 1855 family, her modern day family. What? And there's like cup ramen and a fridge and a TV and all these other things that would be highly anachronistic for 1855. And there's this dude sitting there and he's peeling grocery store stickers off vegetables and putting the vegetables in a farm crate. And, you know, she's too worried about Maeve to really think about it. And she's just like, help. And the guy looks up and he's like, Mama? And she freaks out and runs back into the woods. Like, screw Maeve, I'm out of here. And anyway, she runs and runs until she comes back out near the ranch. And, you know, Caleb's there and he's like, what are you doing? And she's like, nothing, just going for a walk, nothing. And he tells her that Maeve's fever's broken, she's okay. And they're saying they're chatting and a car drives up the road. So yeah, definitely not 1855. A car drives up the road and it's Clementine, but adult Clementine, not teen Clementine. And Natalie's like, what? And even Caleb's surprised to see her. He's like, what are you doing here? And Natalie's like, come inside and we'll talk about it. And if this all seems like a giant info dump that's super rushed, that's not on me. That is actually how it reads. So the next part of the book is super disjointed, jumping all over the place, and you can't really tell which timeline's which. Some's just Natalie's narration. Some is back to Natalie being interviewed like she was being at the start, and it's just all over the place. And I guess that's meant to narratively fuse the two timelines together. But anyway, through all this jumping around, info dump, we find out that Shannon sued them, but Doug paid her off. He paid off all the charges against Natalie, and he sent out cease and desist notices to anyone who talked about the whole thing online. He basically had it all hushed up. His presidential campaign was just a flop though, so he was kind of done with them after that. Natalie deleted all of her social media and she decided that she wanted to have the life that they'd been pretending to have but for real. She says she wants to do it as a penance, but, you know, it seems like it was actually because she can't handle all the hate. So, yeah, they went totally off the grid. And then when Clementine turned 16, she took all of the kids and left. All of the kids except for Mary, because Mary was just a baby. Yes, that is right. Mary was the baby that Natalie was pregnant with at the start of the book. And then when Mary was a toddler, they told her that all of her brothers and sisters had died and that they were pioneers in the 1850s. Natalie bought a heap of pioneer clothes online, and then when they got rid of their phones and everything, they just kept wearing and mending the same clothes. The neighbours are the two oldest sons, Stetson and Samuel, I think. Stetson and Samuel, the two original sons, and they've been supplying them with food the whole time because Caleb still sucks at farming. Caleb still sucks at farming. He hasn't even been trying. Like, every day he goes out to work in the fields, but he really just goes next door and watches TV and eats snacks. The sons have just been, like, buying supermarket food and disguising it as, like, river-caught trout and farm-grown vegetables and stuff. And so at some point after Mary was born and the other kids all left, Natalie just kind of went crazy, I guess. She went crazy and they've just been keeping her drugged up to stop her being paranoid. Like the two, Stetson and Samuel, they get the drugs and, you know, Mary crushes them up and makes the tonic. But, yeah, sometimes they can't get a hold of the drugs, so all of Natalie's crazy comes out. And, yeah, that is the twist. Natalie just forgot. Yeah, underwhelming, I know. Anyway, so when crazy Natalie burst into the cabin next door, Stetson was really worried and he called Clementine. He's like, you know, Mum's gone batshit again. Apparently all of the kids still live close by. Clementine, yeah, she's shown up to take the rest of the kids away. She's been trying for years and years to get hold of the other kids and to get them away from Natalie, but Doug's lawyers kept blocking her. But now Doug's run out of money and Stetson has finally realised that, yeah, Natalie, she's pretty crazy. And so he's gone on the record to say she's an unfit mother, and Clementine was finally able to get hold of a warrant to take the kids away. And she's called animal control because, you know, all this time later, they're still not looking after the animals properly. And, you know, that's not actually Natalie's fault. That is on Caleb, let's be real. Anyway, so Clementine piles all the kids in the car and the kids are freaking out because, you know, they still think it's 1855. They're like, what the fuck is going on? But Maeve's the only one who's really upset about leaving Natalie. Turns out that Maeve had brain damage due to Caleb being the midwife when Natalie was giving birth, and also Natalie being, like, too old to give birth. You know, she's not actually pregnant. She's menopausal. That's why she wasn't having a period, by the way. Maeve, she wasn't breathing when she was born, and, you know, Caleb and Natalie, not real switched on. So luckily Mary was there to resuscitate poor Maeve. Yeah, because she didn't get enough oxygen to the brain during her birth, she has a bit of brain damage. And honestly, the best bit of the whole ending of this book for me was when Mary was like, wait, so those hotties next door, they're my brothers. And just like this dawning horror. Poor Mary. And anyway, so yeah, all the kids are off the farm and Natalie and Caleb are just standing there and they're like, I hate you. And they just like really fucking hate each other. And they decide that they should leave the farm. And so then there's an epilogue that is 5 years later. And the epilogue is the interview that's been cut up through the book. So, yeah, it's 5 years later and Natalie's back in the house, but it's not her house. And she's giving her first ever interview. She's got the prison anklet thing on because she's currently serving 30 years for child abuse. And the interview is being done by Rena. And honestly, it must be so validating for her. Like, I mean, Natalie's still looking down on her. Like, poor Rena still not getting anywhere in her career when Natalie is like literally in prison for child abuse. Oh, classic Natalie. So yeah, Rena tells Natalie that that Mary's written a book, a memoir, and so the whole book ends with her reading this excerpt from Mary's memoir. And so, yeah, Mary's been doing well. Clementine has moved all the kids out to California and they can look at the ocean every day. And that is it. That is it for Yesteryear. So, yeah, to say that I was disappointed is maybe not an understatement, maybe just an accurate statement. I mean, it was fine, I guess, 3 stars. Yeah, the whole way through, it's just like, oh yeah, this is, kind of boring, but I'm sure there'll be this like awesome twist at the end to make it all worth it. I mean, I specifically thought that because my sister read this book before me and she was like, you need to read this book. And so I was thinking, okay, it's going to be awesome. But actually, she just wanted to complain about it to me. So I guess I can't blame the book for that. I can only blame my sister. But the twist was actually really lame, right? Like, it just felt like such a cop-out. Like, oh, it's not really time travel. It's just she forgot, Like, come on. And it kind of felt like any point that Caro Claire Burke was trying to make with this book is undermined by Natalie's mental health issues. It kind of felt to me like she had this great premise for this book and there was all this buzz around it. Publishing houses were having bidding wars. She had Anne Hathaway on the phone like, what's up, Caro? How's my book coming along? And she just kind of felt pressured and rushed and flubbed the ending. And the ending was kind of what the whole book was hanging on. I mean, it really is a book of the moment with the discourse about US politics and women's rights. And I do like that she's asking the question of how can a woman support that kind of political ideology? And it's a great question and it deserves to be asked and explored. But then I felt like this book's answer to that question was just be crazy, I also wanted Natalie to be like properly unlikable. I mean, she's unlikable, but just in this really like meh way. Like, I just don't care, Natalie. You do you. Like, I've got 0 fucks to give. I mean, I might feel different if I were in the US and I had to deal with people like that. I don't know. She just wasn't dynamic in her unlikability, like, say, Irina from Boy Parts or Dorothy from A Certain Hunger. I feel like the climax wasn't climactic enough. Like, when she's strangling Shannon, I mean, sure it was bad. Sure it was bad if she like sexually assaulted her, but I just expected more, I expected more of a punch. And I wanted this book, I wanted it to bother me, to like really stick with me. From all the hype about it being so polarizing, I thought it really would pack more of a punch. But in the end, it just felt as if it was highlighting this particular period in US politics, but not actually saying anything about it. I've read that Caro Claire Burke does do a lot of like TikTok commentary on the trad wife movement, and that is not something that I know anything about. And to be honest, I don't think that you should have to do research on an author to fully grasp the meaning behind their work. I think that, the work should stand alone, and I'm just disappointed. I wanted to either really love it or really hate it, and I just really, yeah. So, Yesteryear, whatever. Anyway, I've talked long enough. I have really talked long enough, and I want to hear your thoughts. Am I wrong? Am I missing something? Please tell me. Tell me all of your thoughts and feelings. I don't know. Cakes? Favourite cakes? What's your favourite cake? What cake will you go and buy now that you've saved enough money from not buying Yesteryear to go and buy a cake instead? Let me know. And as always, if you like this video, you know what to do. And if you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe. And stay weird. I'll see you next time. Bye. Caught in a trap, I can't get out, 'cause I'm an 1855 baby.